Welcome to Impact on Ohio, the series where we highlight Ohio leaders from the State House to the U.S. Capitol. We sit down with dedicated public servants to tackle the issues that matter most to Ohio businesses. Brought to you by the Ohio Chamber of Commerce, the state's leading business advocate. We aggressively champion free enterprise, economic competitiveness, and growth for the benefit of all Ohioans. Stay tuned for insightful conversations that will shape the future of Ohio's business landscape. Get ready for Impact on Ohio, where business meets leadership, because Ohio's success is everyone's success. Hi, I'm Steve Stivers, and welcome to the Impact on Ohio video series, where we talk with key policymakers in Ohio. Today, we're lucky to have our Senate President Rob McColley, who's also a candidate for Lieutenant Governor. President McColley, thanks for being with us today.
Very happy to be here. Thanks, Steve.
That's great. Well, last time you were on, we talked a lot about big priorities like workforce and energy. What progress have we made in Ohio since the last time we talked? And, where do you see things now?
Well, when you look at energy in particular, one of the things that we were focused on is the development of more energy opportunities, particularly behind the meter, allowing for large-scale energy users to not take those scarce resources off of the grid, but rather to build their own energy, put it behind the meter, and in the process, hedge their own energy risks in an uncertain energy market that we have right now. And so what we've seen since then is House Bill 15 was passed, which makes it easier for those large-scale energy users to build their own energy supply behind their own meter. We've seen a lot of early uptake of that, particularly from data centers, which is important because that's one of the issues that people are most concerned about, is that these data centers are taking scarce resources off the grid in areas where we can ill afford to have those resources taken off the grid. And it's allowing for those companies that instead of relying on the resources that are on the energy grid, they can create their own energy behind the meter. Hopefully they're using Ohio oil or natural gas in the process, and they're able to do that without impacting ratepayers in the process.
Yeah, so as those data centers have announced they're bringing their own energy with them, building their own plants, that means they will basically pay for their own infrastructure, which actually could put some downward pressure on rates as opposed to upward pressure on rates. And the big issue that some people bring up about data centers claiming it raises electric rates. Hopefully, actually, if we do this right, it can maybe even go the other direction, and they may even have some excess energy. They can't sell it into the grid under House Bill 15, but they can give it away to communities and folks around their data centers. So hopefully that will actually create more energy in Ohio generally, which actually should keep prices down. So, well, what has happened sort of faster than you expected, and what's proven more challenging as far as continuing to move Ohio forward?
I would say this is one area that has moved fast. What we just talked about with the energy generation behind the meter, we had a number of companies realizing kind of the what was on the horizon, realizing that there was going to be a lot of pressure for them to actually build their own energy generation as opposed to relying on what is on the grid. We've had a number of those companies start off very quickly and say, look, we're already changing our plans to be more responsive to what we are seeing across Ohio and making sure that we're paying for our own energy generation. So that's something that's moved pretty quickly. You're seeing it along with a lot of projects right now. We're also seeing, generally speaking, and this isn't something that's moved very quickly, but it's something worth highlighting given that we're talking to a bunch of chamber members and as part of this podcast or the speaker series, is that we've seen across the state companies a gradual change in the frame of mind really as it concerns doing business in Ohio. And I think that's in large part because of the over a decade now of deliberate, intentional, gradual business improvements that have been made in our tax structure, our regulatory structure, and many of the things that drive that type of business investment that we're now seeing pay dividends. We're seeing companies that never would have looked at us 10 years ago who are now looking to deploy sometimes over $1 billion in capital investment here in the state of Ohio. That isn't something that happened overnight. That's not something that we could have just flipped a switch and it would have happened under any circumstance. But we're beginning to change the trend really as it concerns capital investment, and Ohio's business position has moved up dramatically over the last 10 years. But there's still more work to be done.
Yeah, CNBC rates us number 5 now. When I started at the chamber, we were number 12, so we've moved up massively, and we're seeing brand new sectors. The defense industry, whether it's Anduril in Columbus or GE Aerospace, moving their headquarters to Cincinnati, and a whole bunch of other smaller defense folks, a whole bunch of investment in the pharmaceutical and biospace in Ohio. So it's really diversifying our economy and helping grow our wage base, which is great for Ohioans and families.
Well, and it's a reflection that it's in our DNA here in Ohio. It's part of our legacy to be a manufacturing powerhouse, to be an economic giant, to be an industrial dominant state. It's all part of our DNA and our history here in Ohio. And I think it's not hard to imagine these companies, when they get the right regulatory structure and tax structure, to come in and make those types of investments. One that you also could have mentioned was Sierra Nevada Corporation, right, coming up with their major investment in the Dayton area, where they're planning to leverage those historical ties in the aviation, national defense, aerospace industry to be able to say, look, we have the workforce right here in Ohio, in Dayton, where we can begin to have a one-of-a-kind facility that begins to work and maintain and refurbish a lot of these planes that are from across the world, including the planes that are used in Air Force One, for example, or the Doomsday plane, which was one that was parked outside during their ribbon cutting last week. Absolutely. Which was great to see, just the size and scope of that.
Incredibly giant planes. We saw you there. You did a great job speaking, and that was a great day to really showcase the growth in the Dayton community as well. So you've been the Senate leader for a couple of years. You were the number 2 for a few years before that. Is there something about leading the Senate that our members should know that kind of surprised you or would surprise them?
One thing I didn't realize is how many appointments to random boards that we have. Number one, I didn't realize how many boards and commissions and all those different things that we had, which is a conversation for another day as to whether we have too many. But at the same time, I didn't realize how many appointments we had to a lot of those boards. But it's also something, I guess, to anybody who's listening or watching this video, they should be aware. Look, if there is a board or a commission that you have an interest in, talk to Steve, reach out to our office, because routinely we will have appointments to these boards and commissions. And look, it's real easy to find people in Central Ohio who want to serve on these boards. I can speak from experience. It's a lot harder to find people from outside Central Ohio who are going to come down on their own dime and on their own time and serve on these boards for free. But if there are people who have interest, we're always looking for a geographic mix that is truly representative of Ohio.
That's great, and we're lucky to have members from every part of Ohio, every industry of Ohio, big and small, so we do represent the entire business community. So what are you hearing from the business community now up in Northwest Ohio, or as you travel the state? You're running for Lieutenant Governor, so you've probably been in almost every county already. What are you hearing out there from people, and how does that impact what you're working on and what the team in the Senate are working on to help keep Ohio competitive?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're hearing from business communities is just primarily, it doesn't matter if you're a business community or a private homeowner, property taxes. Yeah. Property taxes is something that's at the front of so many people's minds, because you have people who are looking at the property tax system and the perfect storm that happened, that now the legislature has fixed, that we're not going to have those unanticipated, unvoted spikes on a going forward basis. It will truly be indexed to inflation, and some of the different games that were being played to go around some of those rules are no longer possible. But nevertheless, people are saying, look, in a state like Ohio, how is it that my property taxes can go up 30, 40, 50, sometimes over 60% overnight? Right. And that's something that's being felt not only in commercial property owners or industrial property owners, certainly homeowners, but the ag industry is keenly feeling that right now. The agricultural industry that is probably more sensitive to that than most. The agricultural industry that is seeing their input costs go up, their commodity prices where they're selling into the market are going down, and all at the same time their property taxes are going up, sometimes 40, 50, 60%. That's a very difficult pill to swallow, and we owe it to not only the ag industry, but also homeowners and business owners to get a property tax policy in place that works for everybody.
Yeah, I will say one of the biggest accomplishments in this legislative year is what the legislature's done on property taxes to take those unvoted increases and index them down to what the real cost increase for schools and local governments is, as opposed to letting them get a windfall for the fact that we have a shortage of housing. So kudos to you and the legislature for that. That's a big deal, and I think it's a really important change that homeowners and property owners will feel for a long time going forward. So thank you for that. If you had a magic wand, it could fix any one thing to make Ohio's business climate better. Is there one thing you'd focus on personally to make Ohio's business climate better?
I'm afraid if there were one thing, the next thing would come right behind door number two.
True.
What we really need to be mindful of is that we need to be flexible. We need to be able to adapt to a changing climate across the state, because as we have moved up those rankings that you've talked about, we're now in a different competitive bracket, if you will, of states.
Tougher.
And yeah, exactly. It's a lot harder to move up 4 or 5 spots right now than it would have been 5 or 6, 7, 8,
Yep.
10 years ago. So we have to be mindful of what other states are doing. We have to be mindful of what we can do to be competitive for that investment. And it's not just investment from companies that want to come in and invest in Ohio for the first time, or want to relocate their headquarters or open a second facility here in Ohio rather than in another state that they may already have a presence in. It's keeping our existing investment here as well. And that's something I learned as an economic development professional before I joined the legislature, is your most important investment is keeping your existing investment here, and you're retaining those companies here.
We're going to close the back door and keep the front door wide open. Exactly.
Yes.
We don't want to lose anything, and we want to bring in new stuff. As we think about a lot of that investment that's coming and the jobs that are here, talent attraction and retention has been a big issue that we've heard about. I came to the chamber in 2021, so for the last 5 years, I've heard from members about talent attraction and retention, and it comes and goes. Maybe it's always in the top 3 issues. Maybe it's 1, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3. What do you think we should be doing, and how are we focused on making sure that we are ready to create the workforce of the future, but retain the jobs we currently have?
Yeah, and I think this is an area where we as policymakers have spent a lot of time and resources on, trying to acknowledge a few things. Number one, not everybody needs to go out and get a 4-year college degree to live, work, raise a family, and earn their own version of the American dream here in the state of Ohio. We're a state where that is accomplishable. If you're a tradesperson, if you go out and get an associate's degree, maybe you graduate from a career center, you have plenty of opportunities in this state to earn a really good living and raise your family. And so what we've focused on in the legislature is trying to make it more available for people to get career center training. We've invested a lot more money in our career centers, acknowledging that many of our career centers, so this is something that's different even from when I graduated high school about 23 years ago. One thing that's different is that there was a stigma back then for many of the students who would go to our career centers, vocational schools back then, because they were somehow couldn't cut it, or maybe they weren't cut out for college, because we had the misguided notion that everybody should go to college if they want to be successful. Well, many of those kids are laughing all the way to the bank right now, to their credit. And also, we've realized as a state, we need to get rid of that stigma, because those are the people in many cases who are building Ohio, quite literally.
Entrepreneurs, and they become tradesmen and women, and they really do grow Ohio. So that's a really important point, and there should be opportunity for everybody, and it's not about somebody not being able to cut it. We need it all.
Yeah.
So that's a really important point.
So more broadly, I think we're in a time right now where employers are asking for different things from education, and also even our prospective employees, our students and their parents, their families are asking for different things from education. I do think there is going to be a rethinking that's already happening in our education delivery models, not just what we talked about with career centers and being able to earn those skills in high school, but also all the way up through 4-year college degrees, and also all the way up through incumbent workforce education through the Tech Cred program, and many of the things that have been very successful that we've implemented here in Ohio. So it's going to be an interesting time as we evolve to meet the demands of employers and and the students.
Right, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about all the positive things happening in Ohio, technology sector, advanced manufacturing, energy innovation, defense, pharma, and bio. Is there a biggest opportunity you're most excited about, or something we haven't talked about that you think is going to be great for Ohio's economy?
There are a variety of things, and I think really if I could shift to the political a little bit.
Sure, please do.
One thing that excites me is that we are at a position right now where we have set ourselves up among those states that are scratching at the door to really break through and become not just the best states in the Midwest, in our case, or one of the best states in the Midwest, but also potentially one of the best states in the country. And we're going to get there through improving our tax environment, our regulatory environment, but also leveraging our key assets like our oil and natural gas. The last time Ohio was an industrial giant and an economic powerhouse, we were an energy dominant state. We were using Ohio's natural resources for our benefit and for the benefit of businesses across the state. We need to get back to that. And so that's a vision that's going to be carried forward, provided that the right candidate wins the governorship in this next election. Even beyond that, when we look at attracting investment to the state of Ohio, being able to make that case to the people who are deploying, in some cases, billions of dollars of capital into a state, I think we have a sharp contrast in this gubernatorial race between Vivek Ramaswamy, who's actually been a CEO, created jobs, made those types of major investment decisions, and understands what drives those investment decisions, and also on the opposite side, somebody who last time she was in power actually hurt an awful lot of businesses in the state of Ohio. And so we have a sharp contrast here, something that we're going to be able to look forward into. But I think when you look at some of Ohio's core pillars, some of the things that I think we do better than almost any other state in the country, aerospace and national defense is certainly one of them. We're seeing investment in that. Agriculture and agriculturally related businesses, pharmaceuticals, you touched on a lot of those, automotive manufacturing, things that we have decades, sometimes over a century of experience in, that we can look to and say, the workforce is here, the passion and the pride is already here in Ohio. You don't have to worry about that. Invest here, and we promise that you'll be successful here in Ohio.
Yeah, I think the future is indeed bright, and we're super excited about a lot of things going on. We want to thank you for your leadership. One last question. As you've made your journey from a local economic development officer all the way up to Senate President and candidate for Lieutenant Governor, as you look back, is there advice you'd give on somebody else that's coming up of, how they should do things, what they should do, and how they can make an impact on their state and their community?
Well, one thing that I learned from my time as economic development director, even in a county that's as small as Henry County, about 27,000 people, is that I joke with people that it's an unelected political position, because you have to be, in some cases, the bridge between various local governments. Sometimes you're the bridge between the state and local government. Sometimes you're the one who has to try and sell a proposal to a school district as to why they should grant some sort of abatement or anything like that. And so you find a way to try to put these deals together and be responsive to what's happening out there. And you also have to be very perceptive, and you have to be in touch with what's happening in the local business community and the various pressures politically, business-wise, and otherwise. And so I would urge people to make it a point, if they're getting into politics, make it a point, talk with your local economic development leaders, meet the business leaders around your community and in an official capacity. Talk to them about what's driving their costs, what's driving their concerns, and what would make their lives, make it more likely that they would invest more here in the state of Ohio. And that will inform a lot of policy decision. And that will allow you to go in and speak with some level of authority as to, here's what we can do to create more jobs, or rather allow the private sector to create more jobs here in the state of Ohio. And so that's always been beneficial for me, and I would urge others to do it as well.
Well, President McColley, thank you for being with us today. Thanks for your service to our state. Thanks for making Ohio a great state to work, live, and raise a family. And good luck.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. President. If you have an idea for the Impact on Ohio video series, email us anytime. You can also scan the QR code to take you directly to the YouTube page and watch Impact on Ohio.